Peace, y'all. Ain't done a live video in a minute. I wanted to touch on this stolen land thing because I've been hearing this. We've been saying this for so long. And we need to address this because there's one main reason why I want to point out that America is not stolen land. One main reason that I want to point out America is not stolen land, and it has nothing to do with defending European people. It has nothing to do with defending the injustice that what white people have done, or Europeans, as far as what happened to the Native Americans that were here. It has nothing to do with any of that. And I'm going to get to the reason why I'm saying it. First thing, let me say why I say that America is not stolen land. America is not stolen land simply because it was conquered. It was conquered, and I know people want to say that Europeans use roundabout means of taking it. I know they want to say that Europeans lied and they made a bunch of treaties. Bawani Manifa. They used a bunch of false treaties, and they want to do all these things, but all's fair in love and war. There's been pretty much no war where there hasn't been some type of trickery or deception involved. When you read The Art of War, he tells you your biggest ally is deception. So if someone is making a treaty with you or feigning like they're gonna quit or any of these tactics, this is not something that you can be using as an excuse to lose war. Imagine that. Imagine if a robber runs into your house, right? You're there's the man of the family, robbers run into your house, and then the husband goes up to stop the robbers, right? And he routes the robbers, right? So the robbers are down. Shalom, sister. The robbers are down. He has them down or whatever. And when this armed robber that came in, he says, "Okay, cool. All right, you got me, bro. I'm down. All right, that's cool. All right, let's make a deal." You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna do nothing else. I'm not gonna touch you. And you say, "All right, cool." Then you turn your back, and then he kills you and proceeds to rob your home. You're not gonna accept the excuse in that type of situation that it was because he made some treaty, so it wasn't fair. It's like the dude broke into your house from the beginning. You already should have been knowing it wasn't fair, And I'm not saying this to victim blame. I'm just saying this to say that we got to understand that all's fair in love and war, period. Things like this happen in warfare situations, so we can't say that this land was not lost in an act of war. I hope y'all can hear me over all these cars. We can't say it wasn't lost in an act of war. So the main reason I say it's not stolen because it was taken in an act of war. Now people will say, well, wait a minute. It wasn't, there were people here already. There was people here already. And the humans that are here now, the American country, which is a country and it does have borders and the borders are real, right? The people that got here, they stole it from the people that were here before. Those are the indigenous people to the land, right? But that's also false. Human beings are indigenous there's no serious dispute that human beings are indigenous to Africa. All human beings, you understand? So the migration patterns indisputably come out of Africa, some place in Africa, and they come outward, right? Human beings are not that old. People say that Pangea existed, but people, you got people who have no idea of earth science, biology. These are the same people who tell you Lucy was the first human, but they don't know Lucy wasn't even a human being. Lucy was an ape that was found in Ethiopia like 4 million years ago, okay? So when you talk about Pangea, understand you're talking about something during the dinosaur times, about 300 million plus years ago. Human beings didn't exist 300 million years ago. So when humans came to be, the continents were already separated. So people had to migrate out of Africa to get to this area, okay? Now, people say, well, we were already here before Europeans got here. There were people here before Europeans got here. Yes, that's true. But it wasn't your direct lineage, okay? There were African people that got here before Europeans, yes, but it wasn't your direct lineage, right? Your black ass came from Africa. I don't want to hear nothing about that Native American. That's another video. My point is, even if you think you're the Native American Moors, right? Even if you believe that, You migrated here. Your people migrated here. So you're not indigenous to America. No human is indigenous to America. All humans are indigenous to Africa, and they moved here. So in order for you, a person that's indigenous to Africa and who explored and came here, when you took this land over, there was already life here. People don't think of this. There was already life here. Anytime, let's say for instance, I could go to the middle of Africa or somewhere in the middle of America. Anytime you take over uninhabited land, you have to go to war for that land. You know, a lot of you know, these will be the same people that say the land belongs to nobody. We got to respect the trees and all these things. But then they'll acknowledge the land being stolen from the so-called indigenous people. They'll acknowledge the land being stolen from the so-called indigenous people that were here. But they won't acknowledge that you stole the land from the life that was inhabiting the land, right? The life that was here, think about it. When you go into uninhabited territory or land, even if there's no humans being present, the life that's active there engages in warfare on many different levels. The life that's active in uninhabited land engages in warfare. The roses will cut you if you grab them wrong. The mosquitoes and the plant life will give you diseases if you're not used to it. The animals will attack you when you interrupt the ecosystem that's there. You have to engage in warfare. You're killing trees, you're chopping down, you're killing animals, you're moving things out, you're carving out, you're taking from the natural environment to build. You have to engage that environment and the life that exists there in warfare to carve out a space for you to exist in that land. And the Native Americans, whoever you believe they were, had to do that when they got here. So they stole the land. So how can you say that you're going to talk about how Europeans stole the land when they came and conquered, but when you conquered the life that was here when you got here, nobody's going to say anything about that? That's not colony, that's not stolen land. So if you want to charge Europeans with stolen land for taking the land through force of arms, regardless of the means, then we have to charge the Native Americans, mistakenly called indigenous, because all human beings, as I said earlier, are indigenous to Africa, so they're not indigenous to the Americas. No human is indigenous to the Americas. You have to charge those same people with stolen land, with stealing this land. You understand? So we can't do this. Now, as I stated in the beginning, I'm going to tell you why this is important, because I'm not here to make a case for white people. You understand? Because the means that they used were barbaric, and to wipe out as many people as they did to acquire this land is a crime against humanity by any stretch of the imagination, period. That's an indefensible act that they need to still pay for to this day. So I don't want you to think that I'm standing up for Europeans. My point is to realize that the people who were here before conquered this land. They weren't afraid to conquer it. The Europeans that run the land now, you may be here, but we all know who runs this land. It's indisputably the white minority that runs this land. They weren't afraid to conquer it. They weren't afraid to conquer the land, and they conquered it, and they're here now. And as long as you, as black people, make it our point to stand on this victim consciousness narrative, well, it's stolen land and you stole the land, and right? So what you do when you say that, you demonize the conqueror, right? And if you demonize the conqueror without realizing that the people who were here before them conquered, you put yourself in a position where you will never become a conqueror. You'll never become a conqueror. So for them to own this land, they conquered it. For anyone to own any land, they conquered it. So as long as you're anti-conquering something, you'll never conquer. You're only going to put yourself in the position of a victim and feel vindicated. You're going to feel vindicated that at least I'm a victim, at least I'm morally clear, at least I'm in the right position, and you'll never want to conquer anything, right? The only way that you inhabit and control land is that you have to conquer for it, right? You have to conquer that land. So if white people are here doing the wrong things, just like they committed a crime against humanity when they wiped out, I'll get to your question in a second, when they wiped out the Native Americans, and the way to remove them from this situation and to relinquish them of this power would be to conquer them and reconquer the land, right? But you're never going to do that because you're anti-conqueror. You're against that. You're placing yourself in a constant state of victim consciousness by uplifting the victim. Uplifting that, like we put too much pride in victimhood, and that's done in two ways. There's done in one way of direct pride of the victimhood, and it's done in another way, indirectly, by the demonization of the victor. So it's not stolen land. This is conquered land, and you can conquer it back. Don't demonize the act of conquering. And if you're going to call out the Europeans for stealing the land, call out the so-called Native Americans for stealing the land too. I see I got a question. Somebody said, can I get the resources you got this from based off the information you give regarding Native Indians stole the land? And who were the people that were here before the Native Indians? So you may have came in late. I said that the Native Americans are not indigenous to this land. So just look up Pangea. Any serious scientific book, Wikipedia page, anything is going to tell you Pangea was back about 300 million years ago. Okay, when you deal with earth science, you have what's called strata, rock. So you can see what animals and creatures live together by where they're buried in strata. You can also carbon date fossils. You can look at all these different things to see, and there's ample evidence. There's not even close to any evidence that human beings and dinosaurs lived 300 million years ago. So when we just look up Pangea, you'll see what time period that is, and then you'll also be able to see that there was no human beings at this time. So when human beings existed, when human beings came into existence, there was no the continents were spread out. So in order for humans to get here, all resources point to human beings originating from Africa. There's no serious dispute of that. Somewhere in Africa. So if you look at where they came from in Africa, or excuse me, once you understand that the continents were split apart, human beings came from Africa, then you can you basically know that human beings are indigenous to Africa. So they had to travel to the Americas to get here, and there was no people. I'm not saying there were people. I'm saying that there was life, right? And then just rewatch it, and I break down what I mean and why that matters. That there was life taken over. Okay, so Audra said, "You sound like a colonizer, my dude. Get off the neoliberal capitalism. It's bad." Okay. I never said anything about capitalism or anything. I didn't say anything about any of that. Neoliberalism, anything. I'm just telling you, this land, it was conquered. That's all I'm trying to tell you. The land was conquered. You can sit and stick on the victim mentality, but as long as we maintain that victim mentality and we don't acknowledge that the people who were here before the Europeans conquered the land, we were conquering, land was being conquered all over. This is just human history. There's been empires in every single race, including Africa. For some people, if you don't know your African history, you need to read The Destruction of Black Civilization, many different books, and you need to read and understand that there were empires in Africa, there were empires in Europe, there were empires in Asia, the Western Asia included, the so-called Middle East. There were empires everywhere. It was a part of human history. Okay, even when you study the Native Americans, the so-called Native Americans, you can read about their empires in the Mexico area, all throughout history. Empires, conquering, all of these things are a part of human history. There's just no way around that. So when you want to demonize the conqueror, you'll never want to become the conqueror, right? So if you demonize the conqueror and you feel vindicated because the conqueror is bad and you're good for being a victim, this keeps you in a victim mindset. So we got to stop repeating this over and over. I'm not defending no white people. It's not about no capitalism. Okay, so it was conquered because of liberal capitalism, right? Okay, so when you say that, whatever the reason it was conquered, it was conquered. You understand? So capitalism was the white man's manifest destiny. This is what he wanted to do. This is what he wanted to put out. You can reconquer the land under whatever the guise of whatever thing you want to manifest. You understand? You can reconquer the land for fluffy Care Bears or whatever it is you want to do. But you have to conquer it first in order to do that. And as long as you demonize the act of conquering, the white man will be safe where he is. Nobody's ever going to move him off of that, right? He said, Adai just asked me, he said, what if the land wasn't conquered, but people used what they needed and gave back to the land to keep the ecosystem? Well, there was an ecosystem that existed before they arrived, Adai. That's my point. There's an ecosystem that existed before they arrived. In order for you to make way into an ecosystem, you have to declare warfare on the existing ecosystem and the life within that system, make your own space for it, and then create a new balance. You have to engage in warfare before you can fit your way into any ecosystem. So that is an act of dominance and conquering, and you fight with the existing ecosystem until you guys can come to an agreement. Then once you come to that agreement, you find a balance and you find peace after your warfare. And that's how all wars work. This is how wars work with humans. You know, outcome, we have a disagreement, then we'll fight and fight and fight until we come to the point where we have a treaty, or we come to the point where you surrender. One of the two. After the surrender, we find peace until that is disrupted again. After that's disrupted, we engage in more warfare. You understand? That's just how things work. With humans, with everything, this is balance, the balance that the entire planet is based on. From the lowest chemical form to humans, to mammals, to everything. Everything engages in fighting, warfare, and then it finds balance. This is just the way the world works. If you believe in God, that's God's nature. If you believe in just nature and what you observe, that's the way nature works. Anything, period. So we're not exempt from that. If you want to declare yourself as a permanent victim in that process, you'll always be on the receiving end. That's just the way it's going to be. You'll always be on the receiving end. He said, you're saying take the land back. Then what? Take the land back and you do whatever you want to do with it. The conqueror makes the rules. You get to manifest what happens next. You know, that's just the way it works. You know, when they take, that's how it works. Like when people do in warfare, people will engage you in war, route you, and then they can do whatever they want to do with you, because they're going to hold you prisoner. They're going to rape your women if they want. They may not rape your women. You know, they may put you to slavery. They may make you a slave and then give you a position. Once you win the war, that's up to you. You know, but don't overdo it, because, you know, it can backfire on you. You know, life is all about balance. Life is all about balance. So I think I made my point. So anyway, on another note, anybody listening to this on the end, I'm about to be on my way to New York before I head to Ghana. If you got any peoples in Ghana, if you got any peoples in New York, and anything for me to do when I'm in New York, let me know. I'll be in New York pretty much all of Sunday, then I'll leave at night, and then I'll be in Ghana for the next week. So yeah, if you got any connections or any of y'all in New York, hit me up. If it ain't no more questions, I'll wait to see if anybody has any more questions. But if it ain't no more questions, I'll just wrap it up right there. But the basics, if you came in real late, the basics of this argument is that this land, it was taken by force of arms and by white people. And before the white people got here, the natives took it by force, by engaging the native ecosystem in life, even if it wasn't human life. They took the native ecosystem and they engaged that in warfare and made their own space in it, the same way that white people made their own space here. And, you know, if you continue to look at yourself, if you continue to demonize the act of conquering, if you continue to, basically you're in denial about what happened. And if you continue that mentality, you're going to continue as a victim in victim consciousness, and you'll never want to conquer anything yourself. So we have to move on from that. That was the gist of this video. Say humans were given dominion over animals' ecosystem. Do you agree or disagree? Okay, well, I don't agree with that. That's coming from a religious standpoint that I don't accept. For me to accept that narrative, I would have to accept a God, so-called, with a human consciousness that made things to be so. I think if we take that narrative and that story and we accept that there is no actual God, there is no that these things don't actually exist, and we use it only as a metaphor, then I can accept what's behind it. And that might need a whole nother point because I don't even know if what I said is making sense to you guys. But to answer your question simply, no, I don't agree. We were not given dominion over anything. It doesn't exist. We weren't given dominion. And if you go too harsh in the environment will fight back. You cut down too many trees, you won't be able to crop. Your land will shift. Earthquakes will happen. You kill off too many animals, the other animals that they feed off of will go crazy. You start killing black cats because you're superstitious in Europe, then all of a sudden field mice will overgrow, and those field mice will give you black death and kill your people. So you can't just think you can't just do whatever you want to do to nature, because nature fights back too. Nature engages in warfare too. You go around climbing on the wrong trees, you're gonna get cut. You play with the wrong leaves, they have defense mechanisms. You have to understand all of nature matters. So you can claim dominion, but if you take that too far, you're gonna suffer for that too. So yeah, again, like I said, I think I made my point. Anybody got anything else? I don't see no more questions. So I'm just going to close out right there, man. Y'all have a good one. Peace. Again, connections in New York, let me know. I'll be there tomorrow. Connections in Ghana, either Accra, Volta, or Cape Coast. I'll be in all those places. Let me know. Peace.